Hi, it's Dr. Janowski for Sonata. Today we're going to do a Sculptra treatment. Jan has had Sculptra before, but Sculptra is one of those things that you just do once a year as a maintenance. Remember, Sculptra is a collagen stimulator, so when we do it in the first treatment of Sculptra, we do it in a series of typically three treatments 6 weeks apart. And we do usually typically around 5 or 6 vials. Sculptra comes in a vial. 2 vials, and then 1 or 2 vials in the third session. And remember, Sculptra as a collagen stimulator is going to get better with time. It's going to cause your body to make collagen. And Sculptra goes in kind of like water. We kind of diffuse it around the face. It's different from other products because it's not specific. It's kind of like, I like thinking of it as kind of like fertilizer for the lawn, right? We put the fertilizer down in the lawn, will grow everywhere. So we want to put it all over the face. It's really good for athletic faces, thin faces, bony faces, whatever, because we want just a little bit of slow improvement in volume in all the areas of the face, mostly the lateral, not the central zones, but the lateral zones of the face. So in Jeanette, we're going to do the temple, front cheek, posterior cheek, preauricular, a little bit of the buccal hollow, and then a little bit in the nasolabial area. Those are all your typical Sculptra. And you can even put a little bit in under the brow to help support that. And it will grow over time. It's a very natural process by which your collagen grows in. So I've already put some numbing injections in the typical areas, just at the base of the temple, in the lateral zygoma, the malar area, nasolabial, and the preauricular at the base of the ear. Those are all our typical entry points. I always numb them up before I put Sculptra in. And then in the temple we're going to use a cannula, cannula here, and then we may use a needle over here. Either one is okay, 25 gauge. So we see the blanching points. You can come in closer. And then I'm just going to make my pilot hole with the needle like that. And then we're going to infuse the Sculptra in. Again, it looks like water. It's mixed with water. Sculptra really just comes in like a powder, and then we mix it with water before we inject it. And then I'm going to use the cannula to just fill in those areas. And what we're seeing here is the filling of the water, right? The Sculptra isn't doing anything yet. Over time it will, but everyone, you have to tell them, if you're going to inject it, that what you're seeing today is not really the real effect. That's just the water going in. But we want to sort of simulate what we're going to be doing. So we're going to keep using our cannula. So that was the temple area. And we'll go and do the other temple area. I always do each area symmetrically before I go to the next area to keep everything even. And my typical dilution for Sculptra is 9 cc's per bottle. And that consists of 8.5 cc's of bacteriostatic water and 0.5 cc's of lidocaine. I don't think there's really any reason to use more lidocaine than that. Some people will put a cc of lidocaine. I think a half a cc is fine. So we make sure that adds up to 9, and that's our dilution for Sculptra. That dilution, nodules and these kinds of things are extremely rare. I can't remember the last time I saw one. They're very, very uncommon. And so, let's see. So we're going to continue here with the cannula technique. Again, you can use either one, cannula or needle, for these areas. And so we're going to put some in the zygomatic area over the zygomatic bone. And the cheekbone. So I'm using a 25 gauge 2-inch needle, and we're just infusing that, or I should say diffusing the product all around the zone. It's not, we don't need to be super exact here because the product is really, again, just like water. It's going to just diffuse around wherever we put it. We just want to get the area treated, the whole area. And we'll do the same thing on this side. And we'll use our little pilot hole. Let's bring the bed down just a couple inches. And then again, we're going to use our 2-inch cannula. You could use a 1-inch. I like the 2 because it reaches the temple, which is a wider area. And I very often also use 1.5-inch needles for the rest of the areas. A little resistance in the dermis here. Let's get the pilot needle again. There's a little bit of resistance there. So put that in there like that. And Sculptra is one of those products that you want to massage because again, it's like the opposite of the other fillers. You want to move it around. You don't want it in one spot. You want it to be like the fertilizer, right? So I try to be super periosteal here and also a little bit above the muscles, okay too. Kind of diffuse it around different depths, but deep is good with Sculptra. Again, this is just the water effect making everything look plump. Good, and we can massage it, and we'll do some massaging at the end here. So we'll go ahead and we'll keep on going. We'll use the pilot needle.
You want me to use the cannula still?
Yeah, still, yeah. Jeanette tends to bruise, so we will try to reduce. Typically I see very little bruising even with the needle, but we'll just use extra precaution here.
Thank you.
The cannula will have be less likely to bruise. So again, we're going to go in medially now. This is the one area here where, little pokey, sorry, where I will aspirate before I inject because there's some important vessels there in the medial area. So when we go in, we'll just aspirate. It's real easy to aspirate Sculptra because it's like water. Even though we do have a cannula, it's safer. We want to just make sure in that area. Other areas typically don't aspirate, but I will also aspirate in the nasolabial. And again, she'll look kind of plumped up today, but that's okay. It's all just a temporary plump. And by the next day, that'll be much better. Let's go around this way. Alright. Good. Find your little entry point, and again, once we find it, we'll aspirate and then we'll inject the fluid. Using my hand down in the plunger to do that. Oh, see, there we had a little aspiration, so we know that we don't want to be there. So even with a cannula, we can do it. So that just is a good example there of why we aspirate there. Now we're clean here. Good. Just going to do a little bit more here. So we reposition the cannula there so we're safe. Okay, good. Then let's use a needle now and raise her up higher. And so this preauricular area, very important area, because if we have a prominent cheekbone, that's good, then it's going to highlight the depth both above and below it. So if we turn a little bit more here, and this is one of the areas where we actually push forward as we're injecting. So anterograde here, and we're going to hydrodissect the tissue, staying relatively superficial. We don't want to get near the parotid. And so we've got that filled in there. And then we'll go back to cannula after this, but again, we see that nice hollowness, of course accentuated by the fact that we just put fluid up in here, so it'll make it look even more hollow. So it's a little bit artificial, but she was hollow there. So again, I'm staying superficial. I can see the product going in. staying in the superficial plane. Good. And then back to center, we use the pilot needle, and then we will do some of the nasal labial fold. So again, this is one of those areas where you want to aspirate because you've got the angular artery. And so we'll use a cannula here, and then we'll double check there that everything is good. And you can be quite deep here into the piriform area. There we go, we're aspirating. There is a little bit of lidocaine, so the whole face can feel numb afterwards. And that's fine, the lip in particular, so that's just, warn the patient. And then around here again.
And the eyeballs.
Yeah, the eyes and the lips, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly open there. Do a little poke here. As you can see, there's very little bleeding here and typically very little bruising. And so we'll, again, we'll aspirate, check there, and load it in. Of course, it's going to make everything look great because the water acts like a instant filler. But this does go down by the next day and it can look like nothing happened. It will look like nothing happened. And then over a period of 6 weeks, it'll start to look better, but very subtle, and people like that because nobody will know they're doing anything.
Is this the final site?
Coming up, yeah. And we'll be using needle for that. All right, there you go. Good, so we're almost there. Now in her case, because again she's hollow here and here, I'm going to come in from this direction and stay superficial, push forward. This will be a superficial technique where we're just going to infuse in the buccal area just subcutaneously. One more and we'll be done. And then let's bring her down a little bit, a couple inches there. And from this one I'm going to approach from this direction, and again we're going to go from our numb spot forward. Sculptra does have a tendency to clog needles, so we have to check it. If we're not advancing, we can pull out and clear the needle. Sometimes you have to change the needle. So we're just pushing this in. That's it. Okay, good. So let's get a wet one. And so you can see she's looking, she's numb, she's looking a little bit full. Her lip isn't quite working properly.
Sorry.
But that's okay.
But I didn't feel anything, honest.
Yeah, because I had numbed up all the injection sites ahead of time. And so we tell the patient, it's a good idea to massage all the areas. I tell them 3 times a day for 3 days and 3 minutes at a time. So 3, 3, 3, and get them to do it. So we'll do that now. And that's kind of it with Sculptra. Just the massage is the most important part there for the patient afterwards. And again, typically we don't see a lot of bruising. And we're just going to go to all those different zones and massage the preauricular, the cheek, the buccal zone, the temporal areas, and have the patient continue with that. And this, full look will go down. A lot of patients actually like the full look and they're upset when it goes down, but it will come back eventually as the collagen grows. So that's a pretty comprehensive Sculptra treatment right there. And if it's something you want to do, let us know.